20 minutes after our HOA president called 911 to report a quote suspicious woman cohabitating with visible luggage unquote, she was served with her own eviction notice by a woman in yoga pants holding a caramel macchiato and wearing a wedding ring. That woman was my freshly moved-in wife. The officer who responded was her cousin. The charge against our HOA president was housing code violations on her own property. My name is Connor Beale, and at 39 years old, I thought I had found the perfect starter home in Pine Needle Acres. It was a charming fixer-upper in a quiet neighborhood with more decorative mulch than actual residents and an HOA that seemed stuck in 2007. The manicured lawns stretched endlessly, each blade of grass seemingly measured to regulation height. I should have known something was off when the realtor mentioned the HOA fees with the same nervous energy someone might use to describe a root canal. The HOA was run by Margot Renfroot, a woman in her mid-50s who treated her bleached blonde hair with more care than most people treat newborns. She carried a clipboard everywhere she went, clutching it like sacred scripture, and patrolled our streets in a golf cart she had actually named the Compliance Cruiser. I'm not making this up. She had it painted on the side in Comic Sans font, which somehow made it even worse. In my first month living there, she had already fined me twice. The first fine was for quote mailbox tilt unquote because apparently my mailbox leaned 2 degrees past acceptable standards. The second fine was for having what she called non-regulation sunflowers in my front garden. I did not even know sunflowers could be non-regulation. Then I did something truly outrageous in Margot's eyes. I fell in love. My girlfriend Renee and I had been dating for 2 years and we decided to take the next step. We got married in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. When I told her I was getting married, she asked if I had submitted the proper paperwork to the HOA Relationship Committee. I laughed thinking she was joking. She was not joking. When Renee officially moved in last Tuesday, Margot completely lost her grip on reality. She showed up at our door within an hour of the moving truck arriving, clipboard in hand and a look of pure scandal on her face. She claimed Renee had not been approved by the HOA Residency Council, which as far as I could tell did not actually exist. She went on to explain that couples were subject to pre-cohabitation compatibility evaluations and that we had violated Section 12.4 of the neighborhood guidelines. I asked her to show me Section 12.4. She flipped through her papers dramatically, then said it was in the updated bylaws that had not been distributed yet. The mental gymnastics required for that explanation could have won her an Olympic gold medal. Renee, bless her heart, just smiled and offered Margot some coffee. Margot declined, saying she did not accept beverages from unapproved residents. The harassment started immediately. Margot began slipping notes under our door at all hours. The first one read, quote, "Marriage certificates must be submitted to the HOA in writing with 30 days advance notice," unquote. The second claimed that, quote, "HOA bylaws strongly discourage impulsive domestic mergers without proper committee oversight." My personal favorite was the note that simply said, "2 toothbrushes spotted in master bathroom. Please explain." I started keeping them in a folder labeled Exhibit. Things escalated on Friday when Renee came home from her job with 2 suitcases she had picked up from her old apartment, her cat, Mr. Whiskers, and a new welcome mat that said, "Come back with tacos." She was wearing her favorite yoga pants and carrying her usual caramel macchiato from the coffee shop down the street. Within 10 minutes of her arrival, I watched from our living room window as Margot frantically dialed 911 on her cell phone. She reported, and I quote, "Because I heard every word through our open window, a possible squatter with soft luggage and excessive throw pillows who may be conducting illegal cohabitation activities." She actually used the phrase illegal cohabitation activities with a straight face. She went on to describe Renee as a suspicious female with beverage and feline accomplice. I could not make this stuff up if I tried. The responding officer arrived 15 minutes later. Sergeant Lacey Trout stepped out of her patrol car with a kind of measured calm that suggested she had dealt with far too many ridiculous calls. What Margot did not know was that Sergeant Trout was Renee's cousin, and more importantly, she was a stickler for actual laws, not made-up HOA nonsense. Margot rushed up to her with a printed document she called a notice of unauthorized matrimony, waving it like evidence at a crime scene. Sergeant Trout took one look at the paper, then looked at Margot with an expression I can only describe as professionally exhausted. She said in a tone that could freeze water, "Ma'am, do you have a license to harass these people?" Margot sputtered something about HOA authority and community standards. That is when Renee walked outside, still sipping her latte with the kind of calm that comes from knowing you hold all the cards. "Funny thing about that side deck you built last year," Renee said with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. She handed Sergeant Trout a manila folder that looked surprisingly official. "Remember how you said permits were just government overreach? Well, I happen to work in code enforcement for Madison County, and I have some concerns about your property." The color drained from Margot's face so fast I thought she might faint. Turns out my lovely wife had been doing her homework. She had receipts, photographs, and official documentation going back 3 years. Margot had not just built an unpermitted deck. She had constructed an entire unpermitted sunroom, rerouted drainage in violation of 5 separate county ordinances, and installed an electrical subpanel without proper inspection. Sergeant Trout, who clearly enjoyed this turn of events, cross-referenced the county records on her patrol car's computer. Within minutes, she confirmed every single violation. She turned to Margot with a kind of professional satisfaction that comes from serving actual justice and handed her an official notice of violation. The document stated that Margot would need to vacate her property immediately until all repairs could be made and proper permits obtained. Margot's reaction was something to behold. She sputtered and shrieked, her clipboard falling to the ground as she gestured wildly. She actually tried to invoke something she called Section 12 paragraph emotional distress, as if the county building code had a feelings clause. Her voice reached a pitch that had dogs barking 3 houses down. But it was no use. The law was the law, and unlike HOA bylaws, these were real regulations with real consequences. By now, neighbors had started to gather. People who had suffered under Margot's reign of terror for years stood on their lawns, watching with barely concealed glee. Bob from 2 houses down actually started a slow clap, which his wife quickly stopped with an elbow to his ribs. The schadenfreude in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Margot stormed back toward her house, her sensible heels clicking against the pavement like angry typewriter keys. But when she reached her front door, she found a bright orange notice to correct already nailed to it. Renee's efficiency was truly something to behold. The building inspector, who had apparently been on standby, was already taking photographs of the violations. That evening, Connor and Renee sat on their fully permitted porch, enjoying margaritas and watching the sunset. The sound of Margot angrily packing boxes drifted across the neighborhood like a symphony. Within 3 days, an emergency HOA meeting was called. It was held in Bob's garage because Margot's house was off limits due to the code violations. The vote to remove Margot from her position was unanimous. Even her usual allies had abandoned her, perhaps sensing which way the wind was blowing, or maybe just tired of her tyranny. Her nameplate, which she had insisted be made of brass and mounted on a mahogany plaque, was ceremonially dropped into the recycling bin. Someone actually took a photo for posterity. The consequences for Margot were severe. The county fined her $35,000 for the unpermitted structures and code violations. The cost to bring everything up to code was estimated at another $20,000. Her reputation in the neighborhood was destroyed, and word spread quickly through the town's social media groups. She had to take out a second mortgage just to cover the fines and repairs. Her face when she received the final bill was a mixture of shock, rage, and the dawning realization that she had brought this entirely upon herself.